As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm and promote a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, and the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Whoever you are, whomever you love, wherever you are on your life's journey, you are welcome to this place of memory and hope, where we share our joys and our struggles in our quest for what is good and true. Welcome to this online video worship service for October 3rd. I'm Rebecca Howard, Worship Associate. Our minister, the Reverend John Cullinan, is on sabbatical for a few more weeks, and during his absence, we are hearing from a wonderful array of guest speakers. Today, I'm delighted to introduce our guest, the Reverend Bob Janis-Dillon. Reverend Janis-Dillon had the great privilege of studying with Reverend John Cullinan at Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago. Since then, he has served a UU congregation in New Jersey before serving for 6 years in England, Northwest England, as minister for 3 Unitarian congregations in Wigan, Warrington, and Chester. He currently serves in New York as minister of Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Catskills and as an accredited spiritual director. Welcome, Reverend Bob, and welcome to all of you. A Communion of Heart and Soul by Bruce Southworth. For the gift of this day and for our community of spiritual nurture and compassion, we give thanks. We light this chalice as a symbol of our faith. May our many sparks meet and merge in communion of heart and soul.
Just as long as I have breath, I must answer yes to life. made my way, still with hope I meet each day. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to life. Just as long as vision lasts, I must answer yes to truth. In my dream and in my dark, always that elusive spark. If they ask what I did well, tell them I said yes to truth. Just as long as my heart beats, I must answer yes to love. Disappointment pierced me through, till I kept on loving you. If they ask what I did best, tell them I said yes to love.
The words of our affirmation remind us of why we come together and of the promises we make to each other and to the wider community. In that awareness, I invite you to join in speaking our affirmation.
Love is the doctrine of this church, the quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, to serve life in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow in harmony. Thus do we covenant with each and with all.
No words have been written in our virtual prayer book this week. The words of John Saxon may help us call to our minds and hearts whatever joys and sorrows we carry with us this day. There is a source of life, love, and hope that is known by many names and in many ways. We don't know who or what this source is, or even whether it can be called a who or a what. Words fail us. Our minds fail us when we ponder the enormity, diversity, complexity, wonder, beauty, and pain of this world. And yet we sense more than know that our lives are a part of a larger life, that we are indeed connected with everyone and everything in one interdependent web of being, and that there is something, both eminent and transcendent, that nurtures and sustains our lives and life itself, something that calls us and all life to greater wholeness and harmony. As we share a moment of silence, may our minds and hearts speak silently all the prayers of our lives, our soul's greatest joys and sorrows, our triumphs and failures, our regrets and fears, our disappointments and losses, our hopes and our dreams.
Let us gather our hearts now. Take some time to listen to the still small voice in a time of contemplation and reflection and prayer. I'll say a brief spoken prayer and then we'll hear our meditation hymn, Voice Still and Small. Spirit of life and love, irreducible mystery of the cosmos, may those who are struggling this hour in our congregation and beyond feel the presence of hope and sustaining love and meaning. Some days all we have in the win column is a little bit of bird song or enough food to get us to the next day. But however meager our blessings, we would add gratitude to that meager list, O truth. May we find somewhere within ourselves, or may we be reminded of what a gift it is to be here at all. For those of us who are feeling blessed with abundance, who have everything we need and more, may we find a way to give away whatever is not worth keeping too tightly. May we give away also, if the time is right, our resentment and anger, including anger at ourselves. May we give away our bitterness and selfish cravings and all that bars the path to joy and open, full living. As we contemplate human society and our interconnected world, we know it is a deeply unfair world out there. And we believe there must be something, there should be something that takes the side of the poor and the oppressed. May we find ourselves on that side, the side of justice, in our thoughts and most of all our actions. Nameless mystery, there is always more to learn about what it's all about. We could count all the stars in the night sky, and even so, be no closer to mapping the course of love in our lives. Though no human dogma could ever tidily sum up the mystery, we know this: today is a good day to be here. For all that we have lost, for all that we mourn, for all that we struggle with, for all that is unknown, today is a good day to be on this earth. And we can do something to make it that little bit better. Blessed be. Amen. Hello. Hello there. So I don't know if anyone can guess what we're going to talk about today in our Time for All Ages. Are there any guesses just yelling out? Did I hear someone yell mirrors? No. No. I don't know how people got that idea. No. No, we're going to talk about the meaning of life. And this is a little story about something that happened with a doctor of philosophy called Alexander Papaderos, and it was recounted by Kurt Vonnegut. And I recount it again here. And Alexander Papaderos was asked by Kurt Vonnegut, what is the meaning of life? Dr. Papaderos was a philosophy question, and Kurt Vonnegut said, why not ask? Because we want to know, what's life all about? What's the meaning of life? And he was surprised. Sometimes he never got an answer to that question because it's a difficult question, but Alexander Papaderos actually gave him an answer. And the answer was a little story. The story was that when Dr. Papaderos was a little boy, it was a hard time. It was during the Second World War, which is a time of sorrow and war and hardship. And Dr. Papaderos was a poor child and came across a broken motorcycle. He couldn't fix the motorcycle, but what he could do was he picked up a little bit of glass and it worked as a mirror. It was from the driver's side mirror. And so he had his own mirror. It wasn't quite as big as this mirror, but he had a mirror. And he said, well, he found out you could do amazing things with that mirror. You could move the light around. If you ever tried that with a mirror, and I don't know if it's going to work with one this big. You can make the light and shine it. You could shine it into little corners of the room and see places he didn't know he could see, like under the ground. He could shine his little mirror and peek down with a little bit of light and then see into places where there was no light. And he came to understand that for him, the meaning of life was a little like that mirror. That there was light, which could be kindness, the people who have been nice to you, or truth, the things you learned along the way. And we can shine that light wherever we go. Maybe a place that has no light at all, and yet we can find a way where, like these mirrors, we can reflect that and we can bring a little bit of kindness, a little bit of learning, a little bit of compassion, justice. We can shine it into those corners of the world. So Dr. Papaderos, the doctor of philosophy, explained with a mirror what the meaning of life is. So wherever you go, remember that even if you don't have a mirror, a little one or a big one, you can always shine the light. You can always bring some kindness, some truth, a little bit of love. You can bring yourself to any situation, and that can be quite a blessing, quite a wonderful thing. So may it be. Thank you, Dr. Papaderos. Thank you, Dr. Vonnegut. And thank you, all of you, for listening. Now that I think about it, motorcycles probably don't have a driver's side mirror. I haven't spent a lot of time on motorcycles. Our reading follows along from that wonderful hymn, A Lone Wild Bird, speaks about the Spirit. It's from one of the magnificent texts of the Hindu tradition, the Chandogya Upanishad. This version is translated Sri Purohit Swami and William Butler Yeats. Chandogya Upanishad. In this body, in this town of spirit, there is a little house shaped like a lotus. And in that house, there is a little space. One should know what is there. What is there? Why is it so important? There is as much in that little space within the heart as there is in the whole world outside. Heaven, earth, fire, wind, sun, moon, lightning, stars, whatever is and whatever is not, everything is there. If everything is in a person's body, every being, every desire, what remains when old age comes, when decay begins, when the body falls? What lies in that space does not decay when the body decays, nor does it fall when the body falls. That space is the home of spirit. Every desire is there. Self is there, beyond decay and death, sin and sorrow, hunger and thirst. Spirit's aim, truth. His will, truth. From Chandogya Upanishad.
On the road again, just can't wait to get on the road again. The life I love is making music with my friends, and I can't wait to get on the road again.
On the road again, going places I have never been, seeing things that I may never see again, and I can't wait to get on the road again.
On the
Road
road
again, like a band of gypsies rolling down the highway, we're the best of friends, insisting that the world be turning our way, and our way
is on the
road
road
again.
again.
Just can't wait to get on the road again.
The life I love is making music with my friends,
And I can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again, like a band of gypsies rolling down the highway,
we're the
best
best
of friends, insisting that the world keep turning our way, and our way
is on the road again.
just can't wait to get on the road again.
The life I love is making music with my friends,
And I can't wait to get on the road again. And I can't wait to get on the road again.
When I was about 18 years old, I went on a long walk to discover the meaning of life. Okay, maybe that isn't completely true. I did go on a walk, but I'm not sure exactly why and whether I was looking for the meaning of life or not. I do remember the events between it. I was at university. It was my freshman year, first year at university, and I went to school in England. in Birmingham, studied English literature and philosophy. So the meaning of life was definitely part of the curriculum that year, in between logic and other things I didn't understand. It all went okay. I enjoyed being in England. There were many delights and learnings that went along with it. But after almost a year, I was feeling a bit, I don't know, a little bit out of sorts, out of place. I had something of a crisis of identity, and I think 18 years old is a convenient age to have that. It's a difficult age for many, and it was for me. I struggled with some important questions. Would I ever fit in England? Was I condemned to always be a stranger in this life? Who was I? What was I doing with my life? Add to those important philosophical questions, there was a girl that I fancied that I had called, and she hadn't called me back. This was before the age of cell phones, so there was possible explanations for it, I suppose, but it didn't make the wait any easier. So I was feeling just sort of blah, out of sorts, out of place, and I decided to go for a walk. Maybe just keep going until I figured it all out, you know? I remember telling myself that I would walk west until I hit Wales. I had no idea how far that was, but I knew that Wales was west. And maybe I imagined if I felt like it, I would just keep walking, and if there was a freighter bound to America, I would hop on it and just keep going. No limits. I resolved to go somewhere, anywhere. My roommates, my flatmates were out somewhere, so there was nothing really to do anyway. So I just walked out and got on my way. I left just before lunch, or in other words, unspeakably early in the morning by the standards of a university student. I walked out of my apartment, and soon I was in the southern suburbs of the Midlands of England, in Birmingham. It didn't take long for the surroundings to become unfamiliar. I saw a bit of green, which I didn't see too much of in my student lodging. I heard a bird chirping. And with all these ordinary experiences of nature, a few minutes in, I was already starting to feel better. Was this all it took? Did I just need to leave my own four walls for a while? Well, I was not finished with my quest yet. No return until I had discovered the meaning of life. I walked on a ways until I came to a town. And I wandered through a convenience store, a little supermarket. And after only an hour's walk, I was already feeling a bit tired, bedraggled, and to walk in and have the world there at my fingertips. Sausage rolls, sodas, chocolate bars, whatever I wanted felt like an incredible luxury. I settled on a cheese and onion quiche and a chocolate flapjack to save for emergencies. I nibbled on the quiche as soon as I left the store. I was hungry, and it tasted fantastic. Maybe this was the meaning of life, I thought to myself. Enjoy what you have, even if it's just a cheese and onion quiche. Well, I may have liked it, but I was soon done with it, so I threw the wrapper in the trash, or bin, as they say there, and I kept on walking. I was well out of the city now, fields and country paths. I tried to head more or less west, but as anyone of you who have hiked before knows, it's not easy to keep a straight line sometimes. The right of way meandered this way and that. It wasn't always easy to locate where I was going. And there were large stretches of nothing. Climb a fence, go through a field, follow a field, climb a fence. One time, I walked along a path that was next to a field of sheep. All the sheep watched me as I went by. Every head turned. "Hello, sheep," I said. They stared at me, goggle-eyed, as if I were a celebrity. And as I walked along, they followed me en masse. They followed me as far as they could, which was about 100 feet, until the field ended. And they stared at me, fascinated, until I was out of sight. I was sorry to leave my audience behind. I thought to myself, who knows, I might be the most interesting thing they see all day. And to be honest, I found them pretty interesting too. Maybe this was the meaning of life. Whoever you are, you're important to somebody. Even if it's just because you are someone new who is walking along, or someone new who is in a field with your fellow sheep. I'm sure I made a small difference to those sheep's day, and I was happy for it. And I was glad they made a difference to mine. More fields followed, and paths through the mud, and paths through the hedges and undergrowth. I fell in the mud once or twice, going over a stile, a little stepping place, but I didn't let that stop me. I was feeling a little bit tired, but a little bit of the chocolate flapjack soon reinvigorated me. And then I saw, in the distance, activity. There was some sort of equestrian event happening. Over in the distance, a couple of fields away, I could grasp young people on horses jumping over fences. What fun! As I got nearer, I passed a couple of the riders. Humanity. So glad to see them. It was a couple of riders, youth riders, along with a parent, family, and I gave them a warm greeting. Hello there! They gaped at me as if I was something found on the end of a stick. All three of them hustled past me, the adult rushing the two children past. Well, that was rude, I thought to myself. I was just being polite. What's their deal? Not friendly round these parts, clearly. It rattled me, and I decided not to go any closer to the equestrian event or stayed away from humanity, but to carry on walking far from civilization. Walking has always helped me clear my mind. And it was only after walking a bit that I started to think about the impression that I may have made to these people. Here I was, clad in my big, muddy gray coat. I had long hair at the time and possibly a beard. I don't remember if I'd started growing it yet, but I can tell you I was definitely unkempt. And of course, I was pretty well covered in mud. Not to mention that I seemingly came out of nowhere, just walking along from the vicinity of Birmingham for no particular reason. And I started to appreciate that they may have seen me as something less than a cheery fellow traveler, more of an odd, bedraggled weirdo who shouts greetings at complete strangers, which may have been closer to the truth. In other words, well, they were not as friendly as the sheep, but what to make of it? Maybe that we're all nobody to somebody. Or maybe that would be better to say, try not to judge anyone too harshly, as you've not seen the world through their eyes, and there probably is a perspective through which their actions make sense. Anyway, there was nothing for it but to keep on walking. I didn't suppose I was in Wales just yet, and I still had some energy in these bones of mine. More fields, and around sunset I came to a seat that someone had made by attaching a plank between a log and a tree. You should have seen it. It was beautiful in the light of the sunset. A perfect sitting spot, kind of like a Maxfield Parrish painting of a swing, just missing its subject. But surely, I thought, they wouldn't mind me having a quick sit. They built it for that very reason. So I sat down and pondered what I was going to do next. It was so peaceful there, just a moment of zen. And then I heard an almighty crack. I was on the ground as the plank broke. The sound was loud, reminiscent of a shotgun blast, and it got me thinking, or maybe it was a shotgun blast. And did I see an extra light going on in the house? Time to go. I headed out and jog. I'm not proud of evading my responsibility for that one. But anyway, maybe that's the meaning of life. Don't take anything too much for granted because, as John Lennon says, life is what happens when you're busy making other plans. One moment you're sitting comfortably, the next, well, I kept moving. More fields and paths, starting to get tired now. As I was going over a little wooden fence that I thought was low enough for me to hop over, my leg touched an electric wire. Now, I have been zapped by an electric fence before. As kids, we used to dare each other to do it, and maybe those of you who grew up in the rural areas can understand this. It doesn't hurt all that much, does it? But there's nothing worse than bumping into an electric fence by accident when you don't expect it at all. I pulled back in emotional and literal shock. Wasn't going that way, that's for sure. I tried to find a different way to go, but there was no obvious answer without turning around 180 degrees and going back the way I had been traveling the last half mile or so, and I didn't want to do that. There was a small gap I could see between this row of hedges, between these two hedges, and it looked like I could walk between them. The only thing was the light was now so dim I couldn't really see if there was a wire there, a fence. Wouldn't this be the perfect spot for an electric wire, I thought, just between the hedges? And I tried to check. I couldn't really see, though, so I would just end up electrocuting my face if I leaned in any closer. Maybe the safest thing to do was just to turn around. But we have this wonderful thing in us called adrenaline, which allows us to make really, really stupid decisions sometimes. So I took a few steps back, geared up my loins, held my breath, ran forward as fast as I could, closed my eyes as I went through there, and then, well, I can't really feel this feeling of jubilation when nothing happened. I simply ran to the other side. No fence. And maybe this is the meaning of life. Appreciate simply being alive. There is a great delight, let me tell you. There is a great delight in every moment of not being electrocuted. Anyway, coming near the end of their story, I did see a few more sights. I ate some strawberries outside a mysterious old Edwardian manor, straight out of a Gothic novel. Not the strawberries so much, the manor. And eventually, it was time to go home. I knew I wasn't going to make it to America. I was getting tired. I didn't feel much like camping out. Come to think of it, I didn't have a tent and had long since nibbled through my flapjack. I was walking along pretty much totally lost when all of a sudden I saw a sign. Birmingham, 32 miles. 32 miles seemed like an awfully long way, but the sign promised that this was the way, so I climbed up the hill to walk along the road, and it was a big road, a lot of traffic. I think I had to look it up on a map. I think there might have been something called the M42, which is, I don't know what we've got in Los Alamos, but if you think of I-80, I-90, you get the general idea. And I was only walking for a mile or two when a car pulled up to help. It was a police car. The lights were flashing. The uniformed gentleman told me to get in. He was not terribly happy. You know that voice that cops sometimes have when you just know they're not terribly happy with you? He had that voice. I was sitting in the back. £1,000 fine for walking on the motorway, the policeman told me. That's about $1,200, $1,400, $1,600. Something in the way he told me about that £1,000 fine led me to suspect that perhaps he might not, at the end of the day, actually make me pay £1,000, which was good because I didn't have £1,000. Even my bank overdraft wasn't as much as £1,000, and that was negative. In fact, after a long and quiet drive, interrupted only by a lecture on the dangers of walking on a highway, which are true, by the way, don't do it, he drove me almost all the way home. He pointed and told me there was a bus on that corner. I should get on it and go the rest of the way to my hall of residence, which I did. And I've never walked along a major highway since that I can recall. Even if the sign said it was the right direction, it turns out you shouldn't follow every sign. I got back to my student apartment, and everything was pretty much as I remembered. Only Mark was home, who was one of my flatmates, one of my roommates. He could tell I looked a bit funny, covered in mud, sweat coming off of me, my coat wet and dirty. But I was always having odd adventures, and he was used to me by now. He inquired if I wanted to go out for a drink. And you know what? I hadn't thought about it up until that moment, but I did want to go out for a drink. So my quest for the meaning of life ended up at the student bar with a drink or two with my friend who was a kind and understanding soul, and still is, by the way. I met up with him a couple months ago. But had I found the meaning of life? After all that walking, had I found the meaning of life? Well, as the Upanishads teach, in this body, in this town of spirit, there is a little house shaped like a lotus. And there is as much in that little space within the heart as there is in the whole world outside. Nothing much happened that day, really. I went for a walk, that's all. But I hadn't had a bad day of it, all things considered. And best of all, I had a friend waiting at the end of it, and a quiet night waiting beyond all the adventure. I wish you plenty of quiet nights and plenty of adventures, my friends. Always be true to that little house shaped like a lotus in our hearts, and maybe life will be very meaningful indeed. Thanks for journeying with me. Blessed be. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Bob, for reminding us that meaning in our lives can be found in many places. Next week, we welcome again the Reverend James Galasinski, who previously served the First Unitarian Church of Albuquerque and is now in his 6th year of settled ministry at the Unitarian Universalist Church of Canton, New York. He will share how quantum mechanics has a central place in our faith. Because of the change in the COVID-19 situation, our church board has decided to suspend in-person Sunday services and continue with online-only video worship. The board is watching the COVID data very closely and hopes we can reopen soon. Meanwhile, join us online, both for our video worship service, which is available each week beginning at 10:30, and our Zoom coffee hour at 11:30. The links for both can be found in our weekly email announcement. Please continue to check our website, our Facebook page, and email announcements for opportunities to connect. If you are joining us for the first time, please sign our virtual guest book. Everyone is reminded that you can express personal joys and sorrows via our virtual prayer book. For anyone who would like to learn more about our church or to leave comments or ask questions, please contact the church office. The contact information for all of these is in the service notes below. Our offering is an opportunity to share some of what we have with the wider world. Our community partner for the month of October is the Roadrunner Food Bank of New Mexico. Roadrunner Food Bank, as a Feeding America member, is the largest nonprofit organization in New Mexico dedicated to solving food insecurity. As a food distribution hub, they provide food to hundreds of affiliated member partners around the state. They also distribute food through specialized programs helping children, families, and seniors at schools, low-income senior housing sites, senior centers, and through healthcare partnerships. 100% of all offering collected this month will be given to our partner. Please use the link in the service notes below or use the Givelify app and select the Unitarian Church as your gift recipient. May the offertory music lift your spirits, and may what you give bring you joy.
Well, friends, I've lived 4.5 decades on this earth, and I have degrees in philosophy and theology and spiritual direction. I've wandered quite a long ways. I've met several wonderful people. And still, I know very little about life, about this universe, this grand universe. I don't know about you, but still, I struggle. Still, I can't seem to get it right so many days. Still, I wonder what it's all about. And yet, if I could paraphrase Deuteronomy 30, the meaning of life isn't that far away. It's as near as the hand of a friend who picks you up when you've fallen in the dirt. It's as near as that cup of coffee or glass of water that meets your parched throat. It's as clear as the mountains or the stars on a moonless night. And yet it's not that far. You don't need to travel to the stars or the mountains to find the meaning of life. It's right here. Be kind to someone today. Keep our hearts open to the wonder, to the gratitude. Forgive ourselves if you can. We're making this up as we go along. Forgive your neighbor if you can. We've all got a hard road to travel. And let's live into the meaning of life. We'll never have the fullness of it, but that's part of the beauty of the journey. Let's live into this meaning of life. It's not so far away. We can discover it again today. Blessed be, friends. Have a great week.